Hi, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, and good day, wherever you're joining us from. This is your number one show, The Nigeria We Want, where we talk about what is trending in Nigeria. Today, we have another special topic that we will be speaking on, which is all about the 2023 presidential election. With me tonight, it's evening time where we are. I have Mr. Wale Olaiton, the intercontinental moderator. And we have Mr. Yemi Shodimu, who is in transit at the moment, but he will be joining us as soon as he's able to. Mr. Elvis Nwachukwu, one of our regular panelists, isn't able to make it tonight, but we are going to have a robust conversation about the 2023 presidential election, which is a continual of what we discussed last week. Welcome to the show, Mr. Wale Olaito.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vicky. I would like to, reciprocate, the intro, as and give you your own well, well-deserved accolades like the international bestseller author,
Oh,
serial entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and the
all,
host.
all
And the
of that
host,
for me alone, Abby.
yeah, and at least I think you've really hyped me a little bit. So let me do the same.
Wow,
Uh, so yeah, it's good to be back, Dr. Vicky. It's good
always.
to be back on
Mm,
the number one
mm.
show, the Nigeria we want.
And I love it when I'm able to do it in my comfortable room. Last week I was on in transit. I just finished it at a program. There wasn't any break. I just coming straight to the studio for this. So I mean, it wasn't fun having to just go ahead and get the program done. But when I'm in my office here, I love it. I feel comfortable. I feel I'm in control.
Yeah,
Because when I was out there, everything else was just, the noise out there. You can't control it. The cars, you can't control it. I couldn't control anything. I really don't like that. So it's good to be here.
yeah. I think on the flip side, it's demonstrated your commitment, to the program. Anyone,
Mhm.
it was live. People saw what was going on. They saw you living, into the car park, jump into your car. And then I think that's demonstrated the commitment that the show must go on,
No matter
regardless
what,
of people, no
whether
matter
it's
what.
whether it's raining, whether it's sunny, whether it's windy, whether whatever. When we say we're
Absolutely.
gonna do it, let's do it, no
Let's
matter
get
what.
it done. I think
I,
that
I, I yeah, and I also think that people appreciate the genuineness. We're not faking anything. We're not trying to be prim and proper. We're just being real. Life happens to the best of us. So this is just the way it is. And
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So today's show is all about the presidential election and what's been going on. So we're gonna get into it, but before we do, like we always do, we talk about what is trending, what's been trending in Nigeria, or even
Absolutely.
worldwide. And I will just get started with what is trending for me. March the 18th, oh, sorry, March the 8th was International Women's Day. Um, and yes, women were celebrated all around the world. And yes, it's still ongoing. It's like a whole of March has been dedicated to women, which is fantastic. It's recognizing the role of women in our world. Um, so there were lots and lots of posts about, showing appreciation to women, awards being given to women, just honoring them. And I want to use this opportunity to honor all women out there, those on this platform watching us or will be watching us later, our mothers, everyone, who are sacrificing their lives, their time, their energy, to raise young people to make this world a better place.
Thank you, Dr. Vicky. And I had a few points. I also attended a few. I attended a program at workplace programs celebrating International Women's Day. I attended one online on Tuesday afternoon. So where they had guest panelists, discussing on equity and talking about cultural diversity in workplace and how to, bridge that gap. So there are still alarming statistics in terms of, number of women in top positions, even within the public service, that is predominantly
Yeah.
dominated by women.
Mhm.
You still have that in terms of the directors and the executive directors within the public service. You still have those positions predominantly um, um, dominated by
By
men.
male, yeah.
Like
Mm.
yeah. So and also on Wednesday, I was actually in the city. I was at work, and then we had an afternoon tea, commemorating the same program, and we had guest panelists. They were looking at that relationship between equity and also more predominantly around family violence and the
Mm.
impact of that on the family as a whole. So I joined Dr. Vicky in celebrating all our women globally, for what
Mhm.
they've contributed to modern history and what they continue to
To
contribute.
contribute.
And we hope that we can bridge the gap and
Mm.
make everyone feel like reduce that level of the gap.
Yep.
So I will pause there.
Mm. I actually love the theme of this year's IWD, which is embrace equity.
The embrace equity.
Embrace
Yes,
equity
embrace
is
equity.
easier said than done, but I think it starts with being able to verbalize it. All right. And then when we keep saying it, maybe we start taking steps towards it. Join us to welcome our darling Egbonyemi, who is actually driving at the moment and is wearing green. Is that green, green? Egbonyemi, you are welcome. Still trying to get the,
Yeah.
yeah. Can you hear us, Egbonyemi? Be safe at the same time, please. All right. So, Mr. Wale Olaiton, let's get started. What is your own? What is trending?
Yeah, look, I will just keep it to what you've covered. I think that to me has been the highlights of my week. Like as I said, I attended two programs dedicated to that event. So I would just leave it at that.
Mm,
So if you just joining us, you're welcome to our show, your show, the number one show in Nigeria. We're reaching you live from Melbourne, Australia, and we're being supported by our friends and colleagues in Lagos, Nigeria. So on the on the show tonight, we're looking at the electoral dispute in Nigeria with the specific focus on battle for 2023 presidential election is far from over as Peter Obi, Atiku Abubakar challenge election outcome in court. So we'll be looking at that. We briefly mentioned some aspects of that topic last week, but we'll be discussing it more extensively tonight. Mr. Yemi Shodimu, can you hear me? Okay, I think Mr. Yemi Shodimu is still
Yeah,
trying
that's fine.
um, to resolve a few technical issues there. Um, so while we're waiting for Mr. Shodimo to join us, um, I'll quickly go through the preamble for tonight's show. Uh, Courtesy of our producer, Mr. Alabi. The presidential election of Saturday, 25th of February 2023 was adjudged to be one of the most keenly contested polls in Nigeria by 18 political parties and candidates. At the end of the contest, Bola Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress (APC) won in 12 states with 8.81 million votes to come first. Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) also won in 12 states with 6.98 million votes to come second, while Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party came third with 6.09 million votes, as announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC). Opinions are divided about the outcome of the election. While some observers describe the outcome as credible and fair, others have raised a few issues about the conduct of the election. As we speak, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and Mr. Peter Obi have challenged the results in court, alleging manipulation and rigging. So we'll be asking on our show tonight, who cheated who, as Nigerians await verdict of the courts on the outcome of the election. So once again, join me in welcoming Mr. Yemi Shodimo. Mr. Shodimo, you're welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here once again. Unfortunately, I'm in transit, but the show has to go on.
Thank you, and thanks for your commitment and dedication. So we're just looking at the, I give you, opportunity down to, later in the show to add whatever is trending for you. So I've just, provided the background to the show, and we want to go straight into, into that discussion. So I'm throwing this to the panelists that some analysts describe Nigerian politicians as bad losers. They argue that they accepted the election results and celebrated the outcome where they won. However, these same politicians, rejected the overall results of that same election. Is this the case with Mr. Peter Obi and Alhaji Atiku Abubakar going, to court to challenge that result? Considering that they won in 12 states, like Alhaji Atiku Abubakar won in 12 states, Bola Tinubu also won in 12 states, and Mr. Peter Obi won in 12 states. So some have argued that they accepted that they won in those 12 states, but because they lost overall, they are still disputing the outcome of that election. So I will start with Mr. Yemi Shodimo. Are Nigerian politicians bad losers, Mr. Shodimo? On mute, please.
Can you repeat the last bit of your question?
Are Nigerian politicians, are they bad losers?
Are they? No. Well. Let me say this. I will not jump and say yes. Frankly, I won't jump up and say yes. Almost every election we've had has ended up with courts, processes and all that, and protests and all that. Save for one, which was the one that brought in Chief MKO Abiola, which unfortunately too was scuttled. If probably we had Abiola installed as president at the end of that electioneering process, maybe we would have learned some basic things. But I will not, just as I said at the beginning, call politicians bad losers, because when a process is not too transparent, or when they believe that there are things that should have been done that weren't done, or when they believe that they have also been outwitted in their own shenanigans, they will go ahead and go to court. It was expected even long before we casted our votes. If the result had gone the other way, I'll tell you, the present victors would have gone to court too. But I think we still have a lot to learn in terms of transparency, in terms of due diligence, in terms of democratic process, not paying lip service alone to it, in terms of our electioneering process. We have a lot to learn. And so the courts will be visited over and over again. You also find out that the tribunals were obviously set up even before we had the elections, knowing fully well that we were coming back there. So nobody is or was expecting a. But can we please kindly get near to normal?
Exactly.
That is it. So I will not call them bad losers. I'll just say that, well, if they feel funny about certain things, they're bound to protest.
Thank you, Mr. Ashodem. So, Dr. Vicky, what's your take on that?
Everybody didn't call them bad losers, and I will call them bad losers. The election is saying, okay, it's not business as per usual. It's quite close everywhere you look. Oh yes, there's bound to be some, but all in all, the fact that somebody has been declared a winner, let's just get back to living life. Let's just get back to for the country to start working again. Don't let them distract us and play us against one another. um the election has shown us something. Even Atiku, that never, he had never had as close to what he had this time around. It says a lot. Obedient, that just started, had so much through this. Come on, everybody's still a winner one way or the other, but somebody had to be up there. And yes, somebody had been declared. Let us all put hands together and help this guy, because this is still our country. Instead of us playing against one another, it's now a race. I mean, I read certain things and I just want to turn off social media. It's terrible what this is doing. So it's turned to, oh, it's Yoruba against Hausa. I mean, Yoruba against Igbo. They are. I mean, it's just ridiculous what is going on. So to me, they are just bad losers. Not to say, okay, I've never gotten as close to this as I could ever. So if I could have been, if I could have gotten this much, that is saying a lot. So maybe next time I'll be able to get it. Um, Somebody had to be the winner, and somebody had been declared. Let us all just move together and help this guy to help, for Niger to be what we want it to be, not the way it had been for years now.
Thank you, Dr. Vicky, and thank
Wale,
you.
Wale,
Yes,
I beg to disagree with Dr. Vicky on this. I beg to disagree with her.
yes, quickly
I'll tell
respond.
you, just as I said, if the outcome of that election, right, even if the opposition had scored 90 against 10, this outcry would still have been the same. I'm saying this without any bias. Even if I totally support the victor, if I support the victor, the judicial process is still part of democracy. And we have been at this thing for too long. This idea of let's just move on, let's just move on. That is why we are where we are. Let's just move on. Let's just take it that it has come to the to this, and the next is for the country to move forward, progress. Let's just move on. Just give a support. You don't. It won't work that way. It will never work that way. I believe in. I believe allowing that process to take its course. Who conceived the idea of now knew that it was part of a process. So if the umpire did things that were not proper enough, it stands to be challenged. If at the end of the day the court says the winner remains the winner, everybody will say, go ahead, let's do this. Remember, after the presidential thing, there's still another election. So if you say, okay, let that one just go, and then the same thing repeats itself during the next election, will we say, let it just go? No, I believe that. I do not. That's why I refuse to call them bad losers. They will be bad losers if they go on the streets and not follow a due process. That will be bad losers. They will be bad losers if they want to physically wrestle victory from the victors. That will be bad losers. But if they are following a process, no. Dr. Vicky, they are not bad losers. They cannot be bad losers. You cannot call them bad losers. Are the victors bad winners? They cannot be bad losers.
They're the winners. But if you're not, if you cannot say, all right, we play the game, we're here. You love your soccer. Not everybody can win. And how would it be that after every soccer game, they're taking themselves to court? It's not maybe because
why shouldn't they take themselves to court?
We know the political system here. There's nothing like all this rubbish going to court and contesting whatever. It's not part of the system in Nigeria, which shouldn't be.
No, there is out there is. If there is, we have had instances. There is, and I'll tell you why do people go to electoral college there when things do not go their own way? I don't agree at all. It's a judicial process. It's part of the process, and they
here it doesn't work that way. We
okay, Mr. Shodimo and Dr. Vicky, I
think Wale. If out there, sorry, Wale, if after the court says you have lost, they still go to town with their outcries, I will agree, but not before then.
They are bad losers.
Why are we taking the judicial process out of this whole thing?
Okay, so they are bad losers.
Okay.
Why?
So let's Dr. Vicky
they can
Mr.
Be bad losers. They cannot be charged as bad losers.
Okay. So we need to move on. Let's agree that opinions are divided on this, and
totally.
And yeah, I strongly believe that Mr. Shodimo, you have the right to your strong views on this, and Dr. Vicky, you also have right to your strong views on this. But we need to move on. My next question, I think some of the few things I intended to ask, we've really covered it as part of this. But I will go to that aspect of the technology, specifically with the introduction of technology like biomodal voter accreditation system (BVAS) and INEC results viewing portal (IREV). Why is the election not acceptable across board? And I'll provide a bit of caveat along those lines. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Shodimo. Is this technology introduced for this election, was it a complete failure? Or was it that part of the process of uploading the results on the INEC portal as promised by INEC prior to the election, was that the issue, or it was in your assessment, it was a total failure overall for the new technology that was initially it was tried in Osun election, and then, but that was at a very small scale. But we had a nationwide trial at the presidential election. So, what is your take? For and against the no, the new technologies introduced, at the presidential election. On mute, please.
On
On
mute.
mute, please.
On mute, Egbon.
On mute, Mr. On mute, please.
Egbon, on mute. On mute.
Sorry, I was saying, okay, I was saying, I didn't hear everything you said, but I picked some cogent points there.
Okay.
We needed the technology, and we still do. I will not call it a total failure, because there were human errors angled to it. But outside that, we know, I am of the opinion that some aspects of the process should have been given out to private outfits to handle, not everything by INEC. Of course, they had providers and all that, but even in the operational aspect of it, I am of the opinion that some of this should have been given out. It's obvious that it failed in certain instances. It's obvious that what was expected when we rate it in terms of the investment was below par. And it is one of the reasons why people will want to go to court. You have outlined a process that A, B, C, D, E, F, G things are the model that we are going to take, and this will be the sequence. And if you now jump that sequence, what do you expect? You're making the outcome doubtful. You're making the outcome faulty, right? We need to improve on it. It's obviously better than what we had, but I mean, a failure in certain areas is a failure. We cannot score it 100%. We can't. And this definitely would affect the outcome. This definitely would affect people's reception of the outcome. Right? It was one president here that said what brought him in was a faulty process. He was that honest. Talking about Umaru Yar'Adua.
Yeah.
And if people now find faults in this particular one, if we expected that after A, B will be done, C would follow it, and this doesn't happen, people are bound to complain. So we really need to do something about this. And I felt that we've had enough period of preparation. We've had enough period that we would not expect the hiccups that we got. It's such a shame. But yes, please.
Aside from the issues around the delays in uploading the results, what are the other issues with that technology? And correct me if I'm wrong. So my understanding is that the Beavers is used for like voters accreditation. Like, okay, you get to that polling booths, you do your iris scan or face scan, and then there's a recognition of who you are based on their information previously stored in their system, and then you are ticked to be able to vote. So I'm just trying to get my head around the talks around the rigging and everything. So let's assume in the polling unit A, so they had 45 people accredited. And then after the distribution of votes, they had all their party agents there. And then they, based on the outcome, party A, get 10. Let's say party B gets, 20. That is 30. And then we have 15 go to another party C, to account for the 45 accredited vote. I'm just giving an hypothetical situation here. And all the party agents, they agree that, okay, in this particular polling booth, that is the outcome of that election based on the accredited, voters. They all agree on that. And that same result is now uploaded into the system. So before it get uploaded, they go to the, I guess to the local government and all that, to the state level, before it gets to the federal level, where they now announce. So I'm just getting around my head around why there's so much talk about this rigging, where all the results they are announced and every party agent they tick and agree on whatever. So is there any other aspect of that alleged rigging that is not known? So, for example, I just want to be educated on this based on the hypothetical situation I just provided.
It was
Okay, we've lost Mr. Okay, while we're trying to get back Mr. Shozimo, I will go back to you, Dr. Vicky. Do you have any take on that the use of the technology? In your opinion, what is your take about it? Is it like a total failure, or is it a case of a new technology? Like, for example, even I remember when they launched the Obamacare as part of President Obama, and millions of people wanted to, access that, system. I remember the system crashed because of the millions of people trying to access it.
Log in at the same time.
At the same time. So I remember we had a similar situation here in Australia. I can't remember the particular government policy that was introduced that people had to go online to.
That was MyGov.
MyGov, when that was launched.
Even up until now, MyGov still, for you to do anything, you want to upload your photo or whatever, it takes a long time. You may have to try 4 or 5 different times, because many people are using it. So many things are attached to it. You cannot do certain things without having to go on that to be able to go and access a governmental website. That's just the way it is. And when you have millions of people trying to log in at the same time, it's bound to crash. And you know what? The way I look at the things in life is nothing can be 100%. If they've been scored 100%, everything is prim and proper, I will be doubting. Okay, yes, it's not 100%, and if people are expecting 100%, they're just their expectations. They're not managing it well, because there's no way it can be 100%. They tried as much as they could, and yes, because things didn't work out well, some people may have tried. I mean, there were even some people that made statements that showed us with pictures of when they were trying to hack the system. So there are people trying to do the right thing by uploading the results and stuff like that. Meanwhile, we have some people trying to attack it from all angles. I mean, there have been videos being released of meetings in Canada, in other places, of IT people meeting with some of the contestants, saying, if we can do this, we can win this election, blah, 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 blah. All those could have happened, could have been part of the reasons why we couldn't actually use the machine maximally.
Thank you, Dr. Vicky, for that, different angle. So, Egbon, we lost you temporarily, there we were just looking at that area of that technology. And then I mentioned that I remember when Obamacare was actually introduced, millions of Americans were trying to access that system. It crashed. We had a similar system here and called MyGov, which combines all the social benefits and all that with tax office and everything, like one go shop in Australia. And I remember also when that particular, despite millions of dollars and security, whatever that went into it, that on the day of the launch, that system crashed because millions of people were trying to, to access it at the same time. We're not holding brief for the government, but in a way, we're just trying to look at it overall in a more broader sense that if there were massive rigging as alleged, we won't have a vote where, in my opinion, based on what we've experienced in the past in this country, we won't have a vote where an LP without a councillor in Nigeria will win elections, and governors trying to go to Senate, they lost elections. Chairmen of parties in some states, they lost the election. We had people that, nobody knew nothing about them winning seats to go to rep and go to senator. So I think in a way we have to, we take the good with the bad, and we've, mentioned there that it is within their right to go to court. But at the same time, we need to, I guess, balance it, that if that election was actually rigged, the way elections were rigged in the past,
exactly, normally, yeah,
it won't be like 12 states, each to all of them. But moving on, I want to go to another important topic, that has emerged within this, and that has to do with the rising tensions between Igbos and Yorubas. For me, one of the key issues since that election, especially in this week with the gubernatorial election in Lagos, you don't need to when you just see posts on Facebook or social media, you don't need to look at the names before you know who posted that. It's so polarizing that you can tell. You can see a post, you don't need to look through, you can know who is posting from which tribe. So what is your take on this? Are we going back to the era of the First Republic? Because there's animosity between Yorubas and Igbos, unless if you want to pretend about it. And I know there's a lot of pretense in our country. Unless you want to pretend about it, this is not a new issue. This is an issue that has been with Yorubas and Igbos since the First Republic. Is this same thing, the ugly, going back to the ugly days? What is your take on this, Mr. Shodime, especially looking at the elections in Lagos and all the tribal connotation around Mr. Gbadebo Roads and all the name calling from both sides? I'm particularly worried about that, ethnic or tribal relations between Yorubas and Igbos. Mr. Shodim, I'll start with you and I'll go to Dr. Vicky on that same topic.
Well, I am worried about it. Like all well-meaning Nigerians, one will be very worried about it. Unfortunately, when you realize that a lot of these utterances and ill feelings are spread by people who are well-read, people who should be civilized enough, people who have seen democracy practiced in other climes, you be shocked that the higher percentage of such is from them, from this category of people. And it's all, I mean, just like somebody said, whoever witnessed the Civil War, whoever really witnessed the Civil War, will not join in the call for upheavals and wars and all that. These are people who have been living together for so long. But some of them are falling to the gaslighting by politicians, desperate politicians who will do anything to either claim power or hang on to it. And unfortunately, the social media platforms have lent themselves to all this, to a lot of this. Hence, you have the proliferation of such bad feelings and all that. The other thing also has to do with people laying claims and undue claims to areas and spaces and all that. But when you look at it deeply, I think we need to tread carefully. We really, really need to tread carefully. Um, there are certain things we honestly shouldn't do or request for in terms of claims at such things. We need to be extra careful about these things. It's been on. It's been something, and it's a low key thing, but it has really blossomed in the past couple of days. Maybe hopefully when the governorship elections are over and the House of Assembly thing are over, maybe will nerves will calm. Nerves will calm. But for now, the tension is high. The tension is very high, and but maybe good people are trying to keep this at bay. They're trying to ensure that it does not explode, and hopefully by the grace of God, that's where we run to every time. It will not explode. Let's just see it as fumes being let off.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shodimo. Dr. Vicky, in your opinion, do you think that there's a need for Yorubas and Igbos? I mean, leaders. We all have, friends. Like I mean, good friends across, different ethnic groups. But one thing I also know is that as a people, we shy away from having open and honest conversations.
Conversations, yeah.
We really do, and that's
Hmm.
why we put things under the carpet, and then in politics and in religion, then everything just so. What is your view on it? I think there's still a need for either after the election or post-election or before that. There's still a need to have that open and honest conversation around that ethnic relations. And from what I've seen on social media, as an observer of social media, I know it cut across. I've been disappointed reading from both sides. I've been disappointed reading from some of my Yoruba people, like really disappointed. And I've been disappointed even reading from some of my friends from southeastern part of the country. And more disappointing also is that I've been disappointed even reading from people that are actually caught in between, like they know more about the two tribes by upbringing or by, but you still see that argument, but it's a very tricky one. So, what is your take, Dr. Vicky, on this?
It is very tricky, but when I observe all these things, I can see that Yorubas they are reacting. They are reacting towards the antagonism, towards the conversations, towards the posts that they see. I mean, how can you come from wherever you come from and come and say, we own this place? I mean, come on, because we are open, because we are kind, you just can't want to come and take over. Come on. Where I mean, and it's getting louder and louder. So my point here is the election is just a font. This has been brewing behind the curtains. It's been there. It's subtle. It's one way or the other. I mean, I've never experienced, I don't even know till I experienced something here in Melbourne, Australia. And I was kind of shocked. I don't know. I don't see tribe. I don't see anything like that. I wasn't raised that way. But I went to a party, and it was an Igbo ladies' party. I was there, and this guy walked up to me, maybe because I looked like an Igbo girl, I don't know. And he was speaking the language, and I was blank. I was just like, what are you saying? Like, what are you saying? And then, oh, you could see the change in his face, and he was speaking the language derogatively towards me. And I was just like, so it was one another Igbo lady that had to face him and said, don't talk to her like that. You know what I mean? And we're thousands of kilometers away from Nigeria, and that happened to me here. So it's something that's been brewing, it's not new. So the election is now bringing it forth. I mean, it's the election that kind of opened the door to make it more acceptable to those that are not even talking about it before. You know what I mean? So it's a conversation that we all need to have, but maybe not the way we are having it. Not the way we're having it, because it's the way it's going, people are going to get injured. Lives are going to be destroyed the way it's going. Because when you say you want to displace the owner of the land, even here, Aboriginal owns this land. Wherever you go, whatever you do, you are running an event, you've got to honor them first before you start your event. The owners of the land. I can't just come over and say because I'm a millionaire, I'm a billionaire, I've got money, I've got this, I've got that. So the land belongs to me because I'm making my money here, I'm good here, I'm settled here, I'm going nowhere. So it is our land. Come on, come on, come on.
Okay. I will, thank you, Dr. Vicky, for that. And I'm sure, as Mr. Shudiemo said earlier, this, without a doubt, is an ongoing discussion, and I think it should be very open across the leadership of the two ethnic groups. And we can really have very open and honest conversations and disagree. As follower of history, and I think many of us here, I know for certain it's not something new. It's not something, it's been there for a very long time. Probably our generation has managed it better, but but it's actually coming out again. And I think we need to talk about it, as a people. It's a very important conversation to have. So looking at the time, I will go to my last question so that you can take some reactions from our viewers. The last one has to do with so what should Nigeria do to make the elections more credible and acceptable? There was a peace accord between all the parties, prior to the election. They all went there, and but it's looking now that the peace, whatever it is now, is very, very, very fragile. So what should Nigeria do? One, in maintaining the peace, and also in ensuring that future elections are credible and acceptable. I'll start from Mr. Yemi Shodimo. On mute, please.
When you mentioned this accord, I smiled because that was, I don't know, it was probably just a symbolic act. We've had these accords forever. But when there is the desperation to grab power, when there is desperation to retain office and power, they really remember the words in the accords signed. For Nigeria to move forward, really, we still need to restructure. We must restructure. It's a fundamental issue. It's like, for now, we're still insisting on building something on nothing. Until we are able to do that, until we are able to give what is due to who it's due, until we are able to solve the power sharing issues, we will continue to have these issues on our hands. For as long as we still decide that we're going to load the houses, the federal houses, with all sorts of numbers and people whose main interest In fact, maybe even the first and the last interest is not the progress of this country. We will continue to have this issue. So we need to restructure. We need to look at our constitution. All this haphazard way of amending it will still give haphazard results. We need to. We need to get our electoral body truly independent. We need to. All this facade of the name and the real thing not being what it is said to be will still keep us where we are. And when we continue to pray for peace without asking for justice, then there will continue to be these issues. It's probably one of the reasons why I reacted like that the first part of this question. We cannot be asking for peace without justice. But Miley said that God knows how many years ago. There has to be justice.
Thank you, Mr.
And then peace can follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vicky. Your reaction or your response on how, as a nation, how can we have credible and acceptable elections? How do we ensure that we're able to get that very fundamental part of democracy, that we're able to get it right?
There are so many things. I totally agree with Egbon on this particular point. It's obvious that some part of the country, they are disgruntled. It's obvious that they've got some beef that is still unsettled within them, which is being passed on from one generation to another. It's obvious. It's totally obvious. And when you say you're part of that country and you're calling that country a monkey, a country filled with monkeys, so it's not to them. It's not Nigeria. Most of them actually, and they verbalize it. They are now. So there are things that are still fundamentally not quite right until so you can call peace a core peace, whatever, or call it whatever name. I've been hearing this peace thing for forever and ever. So it's not new, but it seems like it's not working, because if you don't get to the bottom of what is making this group of people, this part of the country, the way they are, and working towards resolving it, or everybody just go your own way, or restructuring, or whatever it has to be, we will keep having this. It's the same thing with Palestinians and the Israelis. It's been a long-term thing. Ours isn't as long as that, but of course we're getting there, because this election that we just had has actually opened flood of all these misgivings and whatever name you want to call it.
Thank you, Dr. Vicky. And just I quickly summarize some of the key points. We agree that cost challenges are synonymous with Nigeria elections. That is not new. That have been part of our democracy, and also that it is actually part of the democratic process, and that should be embraced. And that tribunals are often set up even before the election. So that is a recognition of how divisive and some of our elections can be. On the topic of bad losers, the panelists are quite divided on that. Dr. Vicky has strong views on that. Mr. Shodimo had his own strong view about who is a bad loser, who isn't a bad loser, and that at the end of the day there is a need where we have a court. So Yeah, a bit of agree to disagree there, which is which is part of why we have these our conversations every week. Um, on the issue of the use of technology, our panelists share the view that we can't throw away the baby with the bathwater. That there are elements of that technology that work well that we can improve on, and that there are other elements that are not so desirable, that we need to work on that in making sure that, like governorship elections and other future elections, at least we can improve on where we are today. Sashodimi in particular made reference to the need to get private sector more involved in that electoral process and the use of technology, rather than everything being handled by the INEC, and because there are these issues around how independent is the national body. We actually we spoke around the rising ethnic tensions and the ethnic relations, especially among the Igbos and Yoruba, and we call for caution in that space, and that the media space or the social media space has actually been exacerbating the ongoing tensions that people, political leadership across the two tribes should bring people together, and for us to actually to have open and honest conversations around what are the issues as ethnic groups and the way forward. In reference to the ongoing issues and the solutions, Mr. Shodi most strongly believe that um, we just dancing in circles. That the key issue around Nigeria is the need for us to have a restructuring that, without having that strong foundation, a clearly defined foundation, with just a waste of time. On that note, I'll thank Dr. Vicky and Mr. Yemi Shodemo for their time, and I will hand over the baton to Dr. Vicky to take a few comments or reactions from our viewers and to officially close the show. Over to you, Dr. Vicky Omifolaji.
We've had a robust conversations about this, which we started only last week, aftermath of the elections and stuff like that. So we've taken it further today, and I want to actually thank Mr. Wale Olaitan for moderating the show, and Mr. Shojimu for coming on despite being in transit. You still made it. Thank you so much. Um, Conversations like this, we need to have it. Yes, and it's the same thing. Egbo and High, Egbo saw it one way, I saw it the other way. We should be able to talk. We should be able to talk and still be civil to one another. And but that's not what we're seeing lately, which saddens me. And I only God knows what we're passing on to our young kids, young people. I heard of a young boy of 13 years old, 13 or 14, that committed suicide based on the fact that um, somebody else was announced as opposed to the person him and his family had been hailing to be the one. So his note said, "My hope was dashed." What could have transpired in his home, in his community, for this young boy to make that kind of decision and actually go ahead and did the deed? That is saying a lot. We need to back off a little bit. In terms of, if Obi's daughter is getting married today, Atiku will be there, Batman will be there, and they'll be patting each other on the back and giving each other thousands of dollars as gifts. Where will we be? Why are we not using our brain? Just because Obi seems to be the savior today, where had Obi been ever since? He was in PDP. He was in this. He was in that. Does it mean he's sane? Is a saint or whatever? I'm not putting anybody down, but we need to use our mind. We need to use our brain. What are we doing? Why are we doing this? So, these kind of conversations, it's a must for us to have, but not at the detriment of our humanness. I hope people watching this or that may be watching it later can just join their voices with ours and make comments. So we're going to round it up. What do you want do you want to say anything over all this before we
Just to add that there is still agony in the land. There's hunger in the land.
definitely?
I've driven around the town, the city today, visited various banks purposely to see what was happening. And I still crowds and crowds of people languishing, hoping that they will get some cash to do some petty things to keep their body and soul together. There doesn't seem to be an answer yet. And I just hope and pray it doesn't explode. But I wonder why the change in the currency of a nation and has become such a space technology. Nations do it all over. They phase it out over a period. They phase the old ones over a period of time, and it seems so seamless. But anything we touch here at times looks like algebra or hard mathematics. However, I hope, just as let me use your words, I hope we borrow ourselves sense. And to those supporters of politicians and political parties and all that, borrow yourself sense. You do not count when the things get to when it matters. Yeah. You don't count. Stop deceiving yourself.
That's so right. That's so right. I've got friends that travel to Nigeria. They had to change their tickets or buy new tickets and just leave and come back to their base because there's no everything you need the money and you need the little money you have to use it to buy more money. Come on. So we've been doing well. So let's leave it at that. We'll be back again next Friday at 9:30 Australian or Melbourne time and 11:30.
Sorry, Doc. Hello, sorry, Doc. On a lighter note, some people in Niger State were complaining in the papers today that politicians are horrible, politicians are bad. Why? Because before they voted, they were asked to write down their account numbers so that money will be transferred to it. They voted and there was no alert. So they are complaining and all that, but good luck to them.
Which country? Which state?
Niger State, Nigeria. And it's all over. Buying of votes.
Whoa. Okay.
But that's their own cup of tea.
Exactly. Oh yes. That's funny. All right. Thank you, Egmont. Thank you, Mr. Wale Shodu. Mr. Wale Olaito. And thank you to all of you.
That's the new one. All right.
Okay. Yeah, we'll be back again next Friday night. Till then, you all take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
The Nigeria we want. Great Nigeria. Giant of Africa. Nigeria we want. Great Nigeria. The Nigeria we want. Atiku Obi Folaji. Yemi Shodimu. Wale Olaito. I can see what Shuku. The Nigeria we want. Great Nigeria on Big Ocean.